Hi guys, Mark Dawes here again. As you can see, I'm sat in my office. At the end of the day, I've just been dealing with a couple of emails, and one of them in particular was quite interesting, so I thought I'd share it with you. Now, the content of the email was from a gentleman who attended a training course last week. It's all about restraining young children in a care home, and they were taught techniques on how to restrain children on their own. And when this gentleman challenged this with the trainer, he was told it's okay to restrain children on your own because you have to do it because that's just the way it is, and you've got to deal with it. Now, the person's concern was that if he restrained a child on his own and an allegation was made, it's his word against the child's, and he's likely to be suspended whilst the investigation went on. And of course, with past history of abuse with children, and in current investigations, and the Operation Utri inquiry that's going on at the moment, and the Winterbourne review that went on, there's a genuine concern that this person has, because if an allegation's made, it can basically cause him an awful lot of issues. So he challenged the trainer about this and said, look, surely this can't be right. And the trainer was quite adamant that, you've got to do it. At the end of the day, there's no one else going to be here, and you've got to restrain on your own, which is why you're learning these techniques. Now, this is quite a serious issue because of the issues that the gentleman's raised in his email. So I want to clarify a few points with you, and this will be really important if you are a care home manager or a trainer indeed, or if you're a head teacher of a school even. Restraining a child by one person, a single person restraint, carries inherent risk. Now, there is no law, criminal or common law, that says that you cannot restrain anyone on your own. One person can restrain another person and use force against another person. There's no law that says you can't. But what other laws say, like the Health and Safety at Work Act, is that you need suitable and sufficient staff who are capable of being able to do it. Now, if you take health and safety as one issue, restraint is a manual handling activity, and therefore you need to be able to control the load, the person you're restraining in this case, and that's defined by the regulations. You need to be able to control them properly without risk to the people doing the control. Now, if you look at the guidance notes and the approved code of practice, it will tell you that if you have an unstable load, you either put it down or you get more people to help you, and you do team moving or your team lifting. Well, the manual handling regs are quite clear on that, and you can look at those regulations and find out that obviously if you've got someone unstable, one person can't control it, you should have more than one. But then let's look at something else from a health and safety point of view, and that is lone working. A single person in a situation, potential violence, is a lone worker with inherent risk, and that activity, that lone working activity, has to be risk managed. And particularly with the other risk, where you've got a child who can make an allegation that's genuinely foreseeable because it's happened so many times in the past, one of the ways you will control that is by having two people there. But okay, I can know what some people are going to say, we don't have two people, that's just the way it is. So let's now look at children's legislation. Well, under the Children's Act, it actually states that you should have suitable, sufficient and able staff. Suitable means that they are suitable for the activity that you're employing them to do, which is in this case physical restraint. Sufficient means you have appropriate numbers. And able means that they can actually do it. So suitable, sufficient and able staff. Now, there's some guidance that came out this year. It's brand new, came out for children's homes this year, to do with what you can and can't do. And in that guidance, it actually refers to a document that came out some years ago, which was written by Sir Herbert Laming. And in that document, he actually makes it quite clear, and he states the following, that it would be an error of judgment if a person tried to restrain a young person on their own and in so doing caused injury to the young person or themselves. So Sir Herbert Laming, who was at the time the Chief Inspector of the Social Services Inspectorate, actually raised the point way back then and said restraining on your own is not a good idea. But let's bring this forward a bit more. If we try and control anything on our own, and there's a risk of not being able to control it, there's a risk of someone being injured. Now, if someone gets injured in a restraint due to negligence because it hasn't been risk managed and the appropriate resources haven't been put in there, then they're liable for compensation. They can sue. Now, if this happens to a young child, there will be an investigation without a shadow of a doubt, and the investigating officers will come in and want to know why one person was allowed to restrain on their own, and they will look at you as the commissioning provider to see why you condone that. They'll also look at the training as well. But let's bring this even further up to date. The Corporate Manslaughter and Corporate Homicide Act is in now, and there was an amendment to that act recently, and in that amendment it said that organisations, private companies who are responsible for people in their care could be found guilty of corporate manslaughter if someone dies as the result of an unapproved or a badly taught body hold. Now get that, that's actually stated in the amendment, an unapproved or a badly taught body hold. Now if you're teaching single person restraint, let's deal with the last bit first. If you're teaching single person restraint, that's not good manual handling. Yeah, that is a badly taught body hold. And all this twisting and turning, all the other bits and bobs are things that we go into in our course in more depth, but I'm just giving you an overview right now. Unapproved. Who approves single person restraint? Lots of guidance out there, lots of recommendations out there say you shouldn't do it. I've just mentioned one, which was Sir Herbert Laming. He's made that quite clear, and his document was an interpretation of another document that was there to actually underpin and support the working of the Children's Act 1989. So this is an interpretation and underpinning guidance to an Act of Parliament relating to children. So if anyone out there is advising that you restrain a child on your own, they are not paying full attention to the legislation, the guidance, and the whole remit of risk management and control. It's not good practice. I certainly wouldn't recommend it. Now, that's the way it is, okay? If you are a trainer, please go and research this, or get in touch with us, or do a course with us, and you can find out more about this stuff. If you're a member of staff, then you really need to actually find out more. You need to talk to your employer. And if you are an employer who is commissioning a training provider and you are allowing them to teach your staff to restrain on their own, then you need to question and challenge it, because you are fundamentally responsible and liable for the training you're bringing in. Now, from an education point of view, I know out there are some organisations that are recommended, should we say, or they've been contracted on bulk by local education authorities to provide training, and therefore that training is then sold on to schools. It's a way of clawing the money back. What Michael Gove, the Minister of State for Education, said in correspondence to us is that the Department of Education are not responsible, or are not going to be accountable for what you as a head teacher buy in. So in spite of what you may have imposed upon you, you have to make the right decision, and it's your liability and it's your accountability that's on the line if you don't. So forget all the badges, forget all the people telling you that they're approved by this and they're approved by that, and that's why the techniques are approved and all the rest of it. Look at this from a holistic perspective. Look at it from a manual handling point of view, look at it from a children's legislation point of view, think about it from a health and safety point of view, think about it from a corporate manslaughter point of view. Because if someone dies as a result of an inappropriate restraint, particularly a single person restraint, there's probably going to be a corporate manslaughter charge coming your way, and if you are the training provider who's taught it, you can be held accountable too. So I just wanted to clear that up so it's absolutely crystal on this one here, because we know it's being taught. And if you're a member of staff being told this, and it's been imposed upon you, remember, if it goes wrong, you're probably going to be in the firing line. And if you're the company employing that member of staff, then you have vicarious liability for commissioning the training in the first place. So check what you're doing. If you need to talk to me about this, drop me an email. There's loads of information we can give you on this stuff. But in full answer to that gentleman's question, should they be taught how to restrain on their own? No. It can be done in exceptional circumstances only, but if exceptional circumstances are happening all the time, then they're no longer exceptional by default, and therefore the extreme is shifted, and the whole thing needs to be revisited from a risk management point of view, and the training has to be looked at, and the risk management has to be looked at, and the staffing levels have to be looked at. It is, in this day and age, it is absolutely not appropriate for staff to be encouraged through training, either actively through training or passively by mission, to be expected to restrain on their own because of the inherent risk it carries. So I hope that clears that up for you. Any questions? Get in touch. Thanks for listening.